And we will have the first presentation from Peter Jones.
Peter Jones has been working on the Lustre project since 2006. He is co-lead of the Lustre Working Group, director of the Administrative Council for EUFS, and runs the Warm Cloud Engineering Division at DDN.
Hi, everyone. How does that sound? Can you hear me at the back? Yeah? Okay, very good. Okay, well, it's very nice to be here. Let's see if I can work out how this goes. Good. So yeah, first of all, just a bit of a reminder about the Lustre Working Group. So this organization has been operating for over a decade and serves as the sort of forum that we bring together different organizations with an interest in the community releases of Lustre. So this is very... so we have regular participants from HP, WAM Cloud, and Oak Ridge, all very regularly attend, and Sandia more recently have started joining as well. We occasionally get Aeon Computing and CEA as well join from time to time. But I'm very aware that the current time for the meeting is 8 p.m. French time. It's not very friendly for participation from Europe. So just out of interest, from people who are based in Europe, is there anyone who would, if the meeting was at a more sort of friendly time, like maybe 4 p.m. or something French time, would people be more inclined to join? Not like, I'm not going to hold you to it, but just I'm just sort of interested to show of hands if anyone would be more likely to. Okay, Frank. Okay. I know you're happy to join in at just about any meeting going. Okay. So anyway, and then, I am here for the next couple of days, and so I'd be, if you do have suggestions of things we could do to sort of make the Lustre Working Group more effective or more inclusive and to improve things, I'd be very happy to hear your thoughts. So one of the things we do at the Lustre Working Group is compile the annual OpenSFS survey. Again, that's been operating for over a decade. So this graphic here shows the number of respondents to that survey every year over time. And so we use this data to help inform our decision making when we're making decisions about priorities, about testing, or what distributions to use and that kind of thing for the community releases. So, it's very, really valuable for you to spend the few minutes it takes to participate in that survey. It really isn't a huge time overhead, and there's no sort of personal contact information gathered, so there's no risk that you're going to get bombarded with spam if you do. So I do encourage you to do so if you haven't already, and thank you if you have been. So I did sort of present the 2023 data in more detail in my presentation at LUG this year in San Diego. So I won't rehash everything, but I did just pick out the two questions I think are most relevant for us as a community at this point in time, relating to our transition between the LTS releases. So the graphic here on the upper left is the releases, Lustre releases being used in production, and it's by percentages so that the results year on year are comparable, even if you get different numbers of respondents. You can get sort of a rough sense of how things are shaping up relatively over time. And so the usual pattern here is that we see older releases will decline over time as people either upgrade or take old systems out of service. And apart from the LTS releases, which often will just increase as people upgrade to those. And so we see here in the 2023 data, which is the green on the far right, 215, this was the first year where 215 was available of running the survey. It came out shortly after the 22 survey, and so you can see there was a very healthy showing for 215. It was comfortably the second most commonly used release in production. Still, of course, 212 still ahead, but a very good showing for an initial year. And the other one here, this pie chart on the right, was a question about people's intentions around moving to the LTS release. And so this The blue here in the upper right is people who are already running the 2.15 release, and then the lowest, the red at the lowest, is people who intended to upgrade within the coming year. So of course, people's plans may change, but broadly speaking, it looked like there was a very strong indication that we will see even further growth in 2.15 in the 24 survey, and possibly matching or even surpassing 2.12. So I'd be very interested to see what unfolds. So going on to news about the 2.15 releases. So 2.15.0 went GA just over a year ago, June last year, and we've had a number of releases, and we will likely do a release by the end of this year to provide, anticipating there will be a RHEL 8.9 and 9.3 out, probably in around the November-ish timeframe, based on what we've seen historically. We'll aim to have a release shortly thereafter to support them. So if all goes well, that will be within this year. Worst case, it'll sort of slip early into the new year. And so 2.16 is the release, the major release we're working on at the moment. And so this one is a bit overdue. We had hoped to have this out by now, but and so nowadays, as we've got Luster's a pretty mature file system, we're aiming to sort of do these major releases about a year apart, but we're about 15 months and counting since 2.15 came out, and the primary reason is we've had some delays in completing the sort of very significant development going on around the IPv6 support. So James Simmons, if you want to wave your hand, James, if people don't know you. There you go. So James is one of the developers who's been involved in this project, and the other being Neil Brown of SUSE. And it's been a very significant effort. There was a lot of foundational work went into 2.15 even, even changes landing, I think, even a couple of years ago, right, James? Yeah. And we're down to sort of the final straight. So we've been discussing this regularly in the LWG. Should we move forward with the release as is versus hold to get this, to this milestone to have this work complete. Now, seeing as this is the most significant deliverable in the release, unanimously, everyone has felt that it's best to sort of stick at it to complete this, as we're pretty close here. So we're down to just 9 remaining patches. I was just chatting with James just as we came in this morning, and we think we've resolved, well, we'll see, the remaining issue on the next patch in the series, and then that will free things up for, with the next subsequent ones to land fairly quickly. Those later ones in the series are not as complicated as this next one in the series. So I do hope by the time, there will be a Luster-BOF at supercomputing in Denver this year, and I hope by then we will have these patches landed and we'll be able to give much better guidance about when to expect 2.16. But as it is, we've been it's been a bit uncertain as we've been iterating with these last few patches. And I did sort of want to, so Andreas Dilger will be talking later on and going into far more detail about different bits of development in the releases. I just wanted to pick out a few sort of things. I know we often focus on these big marquee features like the IPv6 work for the releases, but there's often, a lot of other sort of smaller development that goes on that's, maybe not significant in terms of the time investment to do it, but can actually make a real difference to the sort of quality of life of usage for administrators and users. So just a few of those. I think there are presentations in the conference from Sebastian and Patrick will be talking about, and I believe even Aurelian's talking about that Kerberos work. So that you'll hear a bit more about those then. The C group work is something which is long overdue. So basically, as of 2.16. Luster will finally sort of play more nicely with other sort of things running, basically memory management in the kernel. And then another thing I was going to spotlight was we've created a little utility, LLJobStat, to sort of help monitor top job usage, which sort of is really useful when you have that sort of classic scenario of having a poorly behaving job, perhaps really impacting overall performance. and, trying to track that down. So, I know there's different monitoring tools that people use for that, but this is just, a utility just coming bundled in with Lustre, which hopefully people will find useful. So as we're getting in the final stages of, towards the end of the release, this is provisional contribution data. This will be updated as we do finalize the release, but, at a pretty advanced stage. I have, on the left is code reviews, which is a very important part of our quality process, and, really helps as a community to keep, our quality levels up. And on the right, these actual code contributions, and which one did I choose? Numbers of commits. Sometimes we show lines of code as well, but numbers of commits is a fairly straightforward one to show. And then I highlighted in red, hopefully you can see it, maybe not, if you're at the back. But I did try to spotlight the European organizations who've contributed. So, particularly calling out CA, who, are hosts, who are always, long-term contributors, Atos, and SUSE, and GSI and HPC2N as well. So thank you, everyone, for your involvement. And this is over time, seeing how the provisional data compares with actual final data from previous releases. So you can see, the lower one is number of commits, and the upper one is, so the lower one is thousands of lines committed, and the upper one is number of commits. So you can see actually, strangely, in terms of number of commits, 216's like very, well up there already, and it clearly will be the highest tally we'll ever have for that by the time the release finalizes. Probably not on the actual lines of code, but it still will be relatively high ranking overall time. Probably, the big spike towards the left on the bottom there is the 2.4 release, which has some very significant large developments around introducing ZFS backend and the D&E, the initial D&E implementation. So, this is more reflective of 2.16 being open longer as a release, and so having lots of, as you can see from the number of commits, it's sort of more smaller changes versus very large significant changes that were in 2.4, for example, that could pose more risk around those. So as I was putting this presentation together, it struck me it wouldn't be too long until someone asked the question, what's going to be the next LTS release? So then my second reaction to that was, some people will just freak out at that because they'll say, oh my God, we haven't even got to 2.15 yet. How can you be talking about something further in the future? So don't panic. It's okay. I'm just starting to, acknowledge that this is a conversation we'll have. We'll put some questions in the survey about it in the new year. And so please make sure your opinion gets included in our thinking there. Definitely, it's really useful for us to know what our intentions are ahead of a release, so that we can, that really helps focus people's sort of attention around testing, for example. And, ultimately here, I think the main driver around switching will be at some point people will want to have an LTS release that is, has RHEL 9 based servers. So anyway, we will give plenty of notice. Whenever a change does happen, there will be, some healthy overlap period. But, and it's not going to be imminent, but it is, if we're looking over a 1-2 year period, it's good to sort of start, having that initial thinking about that. So here's the latest roadmap on Lustre.org. Just showing 2.16 and then head into next year with the initial thinking around 2.17. Probably ahead of the supercomputing, we will move the timeline to the right into 2025 more, so we can show, some thinking around 2.18. So yeah, probably show that around the BOF time at supercomputing. And then talking a little bit about contribution. I'm sorry for my terrible Photoshop skills, but I only have so much time to do these kind of things. I wanted to sort of show, spotlight that there's really sort of different levels of effort to sort of contributing to Lustre, ranging from really trivial to obviously more complex things. So completing the survey, like I said, just a few minutes. Participating in the Lustre working group, you can just lurk on the mailing list. You could come to the meetings, or whatever. There's various levels of, you can come to the meetings and volunteer to do a whole bunch of testing. That's okay. Lustre documentation, we do have the ops manual. It is a little bit fiddly. The format we use, you have to do some XML to get things to format nicely, but even if you just have some content you want to donate, have an LU doc ticket, somebody who's more familiar with mucking about with that can help get that into the manual if that's a problem. And similarly with the wiki, we originally had that so anyone could sign up and make contributions, and then we found there was lots of advertising spam appearing all over the wiki, so we did have to lock it down. So you do have to apply for an account and get that approved. That mechanism seems a little unreliable. So if you are interested and not hearing back, just drop me a line. I'll be happy to get that sorted out for you so you can update any of the instructions you're finding that are not accurate on the wiki pages, because obviously everyone uses those at some point. Joining a Lustre community organization, obviously Frank was promoting AFS and also OpenSFS as well, always looking for members, and many organizations are in both, so they're not mutually exclusive by any means. Participating in community events, it's a really great opportunity to bring people together with the shared interest in Lustre and to exchange ideas, find out what's working well, what needs to improve, that kind of thing. So well done, all of you, for coming and joining us here in Bordeaux. And Lustre development, this is definitely, there's no getting away from, it is a complicated code base, so it's a fairly high bar to get involved in the actual core Lustre development. There are pages to sort of help you. The other thing that we have done to really help with this, we do have developer days. This was something actually that was introduced at this conference, and since we've started doing a similar practice at the US LUG as well. And so at that event, we did have some, a really range of experience levels from very experienced, 20 plus years on the project, developers with, absolute complete newbies. We had a sysadmin from a US university who was just interested in sort of seeing what was involved and if he could participate. So it's, this event, we turned into more of a hackathon because we had some late, withdrawals for travel complications, and there were people who are doing, usually these events are sort of relatively small gatherings where people are sort of presenting, different problem spaces and trying to talk through possible, approaches or, resolve, some of the problems in real time. They can be very productive. We had a very good event yesterday here, hosted again by CA. But yes, the one in San Diego, and that's the picture from the event. Was very productive, and as a result of that sort of collaboration we had on that day, we had, so far there's well over 20 patches have already landed, and probably there'll be even more before the 2.16 release comes out. So this is work that was started on that day, and has since gone through the testing and reviews to get merged already. So yeah, that's everything I think I had today. So just to recap, so 2.16 is coming soon-ish. We'll get some better guidance around that in the next few weeks, hopefully. 2.15.4, hopefully the end of the year, if not early next year. And again, the URL for the Lustre working group, if anyone's interested in getting involved there. So I will happily take questions now, and otherwise, if anyone's shy, come chat to me on a break. So
is there any questions for Peter?
Can you go back to the slide showing the main? Can you go back to the slide showing the main features for 2.14, 15, 16? There was a great slide with the compression and everything. Yeah,
That one?
Yeah,
This is on Lustre.org. It's Lustre.org/roadmap. I think it's on the front page, so, yeah.
So are you going to elaborate on metadata write-back cache, for example?
I'm not going to, but him over there will. Yeah.
Then I will wait, Andreas.
I mean, I could
Thank you.
say something, but he's going to say something much more elaborate.
You mentioned collaboration with Red Hat. Does that mean that you might want to align your releases with Red Hat? Is there any kind of collaboration happening there, or are you just planning to align on your own?
Collaboration with Red Hat?
I think earlier in your slide you mentioned that you want to align the LTS releases with the Red Hat client, RHL client.
Oh,
Is that going to happen organically, or is there some kind of deep collaboration happening?
What I mean by that is to have a version of Lustre out that supports those. Like there's just demand for that with users, that people, want to have support because for security reasons they want to use the latest minor release that comes out. Yeah. So yeah, we are registered as a Red Hat partner, so we do, when there are betas and such like, we do get access to betas ahead of time. That really helps us to, have the support ready when the release goes GA. Usually you'll find that there will be, although it takes us, there's, quite a bit of effort to bundle and have a final release in terms of all the different versions and architectures and the different kinds of testing we do. But, if you're familiar with the development infrastructure, there'll be patches pushed in Gerrit that you could just, grab the patch that provides just that support and, apply it and off you go if you wanted to not wait for a formal release. And there's definitely people who do that.
Thanks.
Other questions? No? Okay, so thank you, Peter.
Okay, thank you, everyone.